You've seen them on screen, you've cheered for them on the world stage, but what you don't know is the story behind how some of these icons passed away. From beloved actors to world-class athletes, these are the celebrities who were taken far too soon, and the truth behind their deaths is far more shocking than you think. In this video, we're uncovering the real stories, the unexpected details, and the moments that left the entire world in disbelief. Before we get into it, hit that subscribe button right now. We drop videos like this every single week, and you don't want to miss what's coming. Let's get into it. At number 10, we have Chadwick Boseman. In 2016, the same year Marvel Cinematic Universe fans were introduced to him, Chadwick Boseman was quietly diagnosed with stage 3 colon cancer. He was just 39, almost no one knew. Not his co-stars, not the directors, not even the millions of fans adoring him behind the big screen. The secret stayed within a tiny circle: his family, his producing partner, and his personal trainer. But here's what makes his story unbelievable. While battling cancer, while going through surgeries, while going through chemotherapy, he gave the world some of his most iconic performances: Black Panther, Avengers Infinity War, Avengers Endgame, The Five Bloods, Ma Rainey's Black Bottom, all while fighting a battle the world never saw. In 2016, the exact year he was diagnosed, Chadwick Boseman was asked in an interview what he had in common with T'Challa. He smiled and said, "I am a keeper of secrets." At the time, no one thought much of it, but years later that line meant everything. On August 28, 2020, a statement was posted on his Twitter account. His cancer had progressed to stage 4. He had passed away that very day. He was only 43 years old, and in a moment that stunned the entire world, people found out he had been sick, and that he was already gone. At that exact same time, there was no warning, no public battle, just silence until the end. As reported by The Hollywood Reporter, his agent later said, Chadwick did not want people to fuss over him. He was a very private person, and until his final moment, he kept that promise. He won the Golden Globe and the SAG Award for Ma Rainey's Black Bottom after he died. He was nominated for an Oscar in the same category. When Marvel released Black Panther: Wakanda Forever in 2022, the studio's opening logo, which usually plays over footage of Marvel heroes, was replaced by just a faint sound of wind and still images of beloved Chadwick Boseman. The film ended with 6 words on a black screen, dedicated to our friend Chadwick Boseman. He gave everything he had to a role that meant everything to millions of people. He just did it while nobody knew what it was actually costing him. May he rest in peace. At number 9, we have Kobe Bryant. On the morning of January 26, 2020, Kobe Bryant boarded a helicopter in Orange County with his 13-year-old daughter, Gianna Bryant. They were on their way to her basketball tournament. She was dressed for it too, wearing her jersey, Mamba across the front, her last name on the back. It was supposed to be just another game. 7 others were on board. The pilot, Era Zobayan, who had flown Kobe many times before, but that morning something was different. A thick fog had settled over the San Fernando Valley, limiting visibility. As the helicopter moved through the clouds, the pilot climbed sharply, trying to break above the weather. Then an abrupt left turn, seconds later, impact. The helicopter crashed into a hillside in Calabasas, traveling at around 184 miles per hour, descending at over 4,000 feet per minute. There was no chance to recover. All 9 people had unfortunately lost their lives instantly, and in the aftermath, Kobe Bryant was identified by his fingerprints. 20 seasons with the Los Angeles Lakers, 5 championships, 8 All-Star appearances. In 2018, Kobe Bryant even won an Academy Award for Best Animated Short Film. He was 41 years old, his daughter was 13. That same night, the Grammy Awards were being held at Staples Center, the house he built. It turned into one of the very first tributes, out of thousands. The Empire State Building lit up in purple and gold. The Burj Khalifa lit up in purple and gold. The world stopped. Michael Jordan said, "Words can't describe the pain I'm feeling. I loved Kobe. He was like a little brother to me."
In the game of basketball, in life, as a parent, Kobe left nothing in the tank. He left it all on the floor. That Kobe and I were very close friends, but we were very close friends. Kobe was my dear friend. He was like a little brother.
At the public memorial, Vanessa Bryant stood in front of 20,000 people and said, "God knew they couldn't be on this earth without each other. He had to bring them home together." And maybe the most heartbreaking detail of all, the last photo Kobe ever posted was him and Gianna sitting courtside at a Lakers game, December 29th, 2019. just 28 days before everything changed. May all the passengers of that helicopter and Kobe Bryant and Gianna rest in peace. At number 8, we have Heath Ledger. In November 2007, Heath Ledger sat down for an interview with the New York Times and said, "Last week I probably slept an average of 2 hours a night. I couldn't stop thinking." He had just finished playing the Joker in The Dark Knight. To prepare for the role, he locked himself in a hotel room for a month, kept a journal written entirely in the Joker's voice, obsessed over every physical and psychological detail. He described the character as a psychopathic, mass-murdering, schizophrenic clown with zero empathy. What he created will later be called one of the greatest performances in film history, but he would never see it. On January 22, 2008, his housekeeper arrived at his apartment in Soho, New York. At first, she thought he was just asleep. Hours later, his masseuse entered the room and found him face down in bed, cold and unresponsive. Paramedics were called. They tried to revive him, but it was too late. At 3:36 p.m., he was pronounced dead. He was 28 years old. The cause was acute intoxication, a combination of 6 prescription meds, all prescribed, none taken beyond their intended dose. As his father, Kim Ledger, later said, "The combination of doctor-prescribed drugs proved lethal for our boy. He left behind a 2-year-old daughter, Matilda. His will, written years earlier, didn't include her, but his family gave her everything, a $16.3 million estate without hesitation." 8 months later, The Dark Knight was released, and the performance he never got to see became one the world would never forget. Heath Ledger won the Academy Award for Best Supporting Actor by unanimous decision, only the second actor in history to do so. Rest in peace. At number 7, we have Cameron Boyce. Cameron Boyce was 20 years old. He went to sleep in his North Hollywood home, and he never woke up. He had been acting since he was 8. From a kid in a panic at the disco music video, to his film debut in Mirrors, to starring alongside Adam Sandler in Grown Ups, he built a fan base of millions through Jesse and the Descendants films. By every visible measure, he was healthy, and he had just finished filming Descendants 3. The premiere was less than a month away. On July 6, 2019, he was found unresponsive at home. At 2:35 p.m., he was pronounced dead. What happened next shocked everyone. His family revealed the cause: sudden, unexpected death in epilepsy, a condition most people have never even heard of. His parents, Victor Boyce and Libby Boyce, later shared he had his first seizure at 16. Only 5 seizures in his entire life, and every single one of them happened while he was asleep. He never let it define him, never let it slow him down, but it still took his life. As his mother said, "We have no idea it could kill him. We're still shocked." Adam Sandler wrote, "Too young, too sweet, too funny. Just the nicest, most talented, most decent kid around." And the reality is, sudden unexpected death in epilepsy affects about 1 in 1,000 people with epilepsy each year, more than many people realize. After his death, his family created the Cameron Boyce Foundation to raise awareness and fund research, and when Descendants 3 was released, his name was still there in the credits. By the way, if you guys want to donate to the Cameron Boyce Foundation to raise awareness, I'm going to leave a link down below. Me personally, I'm going to donate $5 as well. If you're still watching, drop a like on the video, by the way, and write down in the comments which one on the list hit you the hardest so far. At number 6, we have Paul Walker. Paul Walker was supposed to be buying a Christmas tree. That was the plan. On November 30th, 2013, he was at home with his mother, Cheryl Walker, and his 15-year-old daughter, Meadow Walker. They were talking, laughing, deciding on a tree, when his phone buzzed, a reminder. His charity, Reach Out Worldwide, was holding an event for victims of Typhoon Haiyan. He had forgotten. As his mother later recalled, "We were having this conversation and then he said, 'Oh my gosh, I'm supposed to be somewhere.' So he left." The event went as planned, and then around 3:30 in the afternoon, Paul got into a car with his friend, Roger Rodas, a short drive just before heading home. They were in a Porsche Carrera GT, speeding between 80 and 93 miles per hour in a 45 mile per hour zone. Then a curve. Loss of control, the car slammed into a concrete lamppost, then 2 trees, and burst into flames. Within seconds, there was no time, both men had passed away. Paul Walker was 40 years old. He was identified by his dental records. At the time, he was in the middle of filming Furious 7, about 85% of his scenes already completed. Production stopped, then resumed. Using visual effects from Weta Digital and his brothers Caleb Walker and Cody Walker as stand-ins, the film ended with a goodbye, a tribute that millions would never forget. Wiz Khalifa and Charlie Puth recorded See You Again just for him. And maybe the hardest detail of all, his last words that day, according to someone who was there, "Hey, let's go for a drive." May he rest in peace. At number 5, we have Matthew Perry. For years, Matthew Perry told the world exactly how much he was struggling. He wrote about it, spoke about it, never hid it. He was one of the most open voices in Hollywood when it came to addiction and recovery. And somehow, that honestly made what happened next hit even harder. On October 28, 2023, he was found face down in a hot tub at his home in Pacific Palisades. He was 54 years old. The Los Angeles County Medical Examiner confirmed the cause: acute effects of ketamine with drowning and coronary artery disease as contributing factors. His blood ketamine level was in the range used for surgical anesthesia, and that's what makes this story complicated, because ketamine can be a legitimate medical treatment. He had been receiving infusion therapy for depression, but in the months before his death, he relapsed, began obtaining and using it outside of medical supervision. According to the investigators, in the weeks leading up to that day, he was being given ketamine repeatedly at home. On October 28th, he reportedly received multiple injections. His final reported words, "Shoot me up with a big one." After his death, 5 people were charged in connection to the case. Among them, Jasveen Sangha, later sentenced to 15 years in federal prison in 2026. His stepfather, Keith Morrison, described him as funny, brilliant, with a lot of ghosts, generous, kind, infuriating, and fabulous. To millions, he was Chandler Bing, the one who made an entire generation laugh. But behind the scenes, Matthew Perry was fighting something far more complicated, and in the end, it unfortunately caught up with him. May he rest in peace. At number 4, we have Nipsey Hussle. Nipsey Hussle was shot outside of his own store. His real name was Hermes Asghedom. He grew up in Crenshaw, South Los Angeles, and spent years building something bigger than music. He invested in his neighborhood, opened businesses on the same streets he came from, became a symbol of what was possible. His debut album, Victory Lap, earned a Grammy nomination, and when he released his mixtape, Crenshaw, for $100 a copy, Jay-Z bought 100 of them in one purchase. That's the level of respect he had. Then came March 31st, 2019. At 3:18 in the afternoon, Nipsey was standing outside his store, Marathon Clothing, just talking with his friends. A man he knew, Eric Holder, walked up. They shook hands. Nothing seemed wrong. He left, then came back minutes later with 2 guns. What happened next was described by prosecutors as an explosion of violence. Nipsey was shot at least 10 times, from his feet to his head. The attacker then kicked him before running, and as he laid there, his last reported words were, "You got me." At 3:55 p.m., Nipsey Hussle was unfortunately pronounced dead. He was 33 years old. Far too young. Just 30 minutes before the shooting, he posted his final message: "Having strong enemies is a blessing," and here's what makes it even harder to process. The very next day, he was scheduled to meet with the LAPD at his request to talk about how he could help stop gang violence in his community. That meeting never happened, but something else did. Hundreds of gangs across Los Angeles agreed to a ceasefire in his memory. The interaction outside his store was renamed Hermes Nipsey Hussle Asghedom Square, and Barack Obama wrote in a letter, "While most see gangs, bullets, and despair, Nipsey saw potential, a legend in the making, and someone who's taken from us far too soon. May Nipsey rest in peace." At number 3, we have Liam Payne. One Direction was one of the best-selling boy bands in history, and Liam Payne was one of the 5 members of One Direction, who built that success after performing on The X Factor in the UK in 2010. When the group went on a leave in 2016, he launched a solo career. His single Trip That Down
had it in the band, and I don't blame anybody for this. I don't want.
And he had a son, Bear, and he was 31 years old. In October 2024, he traveled to Buenos Aires, Argentina, reportedly to attend a concert by former bandmate Neil Horn. On October 14th, his girlfriend Kate Cassidy returned to Florida, leaving him at the Casa Sur Palmero Hotel. 2 days later, on October 16th, emergency services were called to the hotel
and they heard a
after
crashing
reports
sound
of an
come from the
intoxicated
courtyard.
guest causing damage in his room. Moments after responders arrived, Payne fell from a 3rd-floor balcony, approximately 43 to 46 feet. He was pronounced dead at 5:11 p.m. Authorities reported injuries consistent with a fatal fall and no possibility of saving him. Later, forensic analysis indicated he did not appear to have taken a protective posture during the fall. Toxicology reports confirmed the presence of alcohol, cocaine, and a prescribed antidepressant. Earlier that day, reports from witnesses described erratic behavior inside the hotel. At one point, he allegedly told another guest, "I used to be in a boy band. That's why I'm so messed up." Following the incident, Argentina authorities opened an investigation and several individuals connected to the case were charged as questions continued. For millions of fans around the world, One Direction wasn't just a band. And October 16, 2024 became one of the most devastating days in that fan base's history. At number 2, we have XXXTentacion. XXXTentacion was 20 years old. He was sitting in his BMW outside a motorcycle dealership in Deerfield Beach, Florida, when his life ended in seconds. Two men pulled up in a black SUV, walked to his car, walked to his window, and demanded his chain. His real name was Jasiah Onfroy. He grew up in South Florida and became one of the most influential and polarizing voices of his generation, blending hip-hop, emo, and rock into a sound that defined a new era online. His album 17 reached number 2 on the Billboard 200. His follow-up debuted at number 1. By 2018, he had nearly 4 billion on-demand streams, and he was still only getting started. But on June 18, 2018, everything stopped. When he resisted the robbery, one of the attackers, Michael Boatwright, opened fire. Multiple shots were fired, one struck him in the neck, and he was pronounced dead at approximately 5:30 p.m. A Louis Vuitton bag containing $50,000 in cash was taken from the vehicle. Years later, in March 2023, 3 men were convicted of first-degree murder and all sentenced to life in prison. At sentencing, the judge told Boatwright, "You turned a robbery into a murder. You will spend the rest of your life and rot in prison." As the verdict was read, Boatwright reportedly turned towards XXXTentacion's family and blew a kiss. Some people have no heart. May he rest in peace. At number 1, we have Juice WRLD. Juice WRLD had turned 21 just 6 days before he passed away. His real name was Jared Higgins, born and raised in Chicago. By that point, he had already become one of the most defining voices of his generation. His breakout single, Lucid Dreams, went diamond and peaked at number 2 on the Billboard Hot 100. His album, Death Race for Love, debuted at number 1. And he was named Top New Artist at the 2019 Billboard Music Awards. At 21, his career had barely begun. On December 8, 2019, his private jet landed at Midway International Airport in Chicago. Federal agents were already waiting. They had been tipped off about possible drugs and firearms on board. As the plane was searched, authorities reported finding large quantities of marijuana, prescription pills, and multiple firearms. Witnesses later claimed that during the search, he ingested multiple pills. Moments later, he went into a medical emergency inside the airport hangar. He suffered a seizure and cardiac arrest. Paramedics administered Narcan twice, and he was rushed to Christ Medical Center. At 3:14 a.m., he was pronounced dead. The county Cook medical examiner ruled the cause: accidental oxydone and codeine toxicity. But there is a detail that still haunts fans. In 2018, Juice WRLD released a song called Legends. It was written in his response to the death of Lil Peep at XXXTentacion. In it, he rapped, "What's the 27 club? We ain't making it past 21. Every single person on this list had more to give. More films, more music, more games, and more to the people that adored them. More moments their fans were never going to get. What makes these stories hit the way they do isn't just how they passed away, it's how much they still had left to accomplish and give to us. Chadwick Boseman fought in secret for 4 years so he could keep giving people Black Panther. Cameron Boyce wrapped a whole movie he never got to see come out. Nipsey Hussle had a meeting the next morning about saving lives in neighborhoods. Juice WRLD had just turned 21. The world lost 10 people who meant something real to millions of fans who never got to say goodbye. If this video hit you in any way, take a moment to let it sit. My prayers are with all the families who lost a loved one. We'll see you in the next one. If this video is something that you enjoyed and you want to see more of, hit that subscribe button. Peace.